What happens when the person you love the most looks you in the eyes and says the one thing you never thought you'd hear? A word that cuts deeper than silence. A word that doesn't just question your feelings but your very heart. In the summer I turned pretty. That moment arrives when Conrad turns to Belly, his voice heavy with pain, and calls her heartless. But what does this really mean? Is it the truth, or is it the cry of a broken boy who feels abandoned? Let's dive deep into this moment where love, regret, and anger all collide. To understand the weight of Conrad's words, we first have to step back and look at everything that brought him and Belly to this breaking point. Their story isn't just about summer love. It's about years of memories, promises, and silent feelings that were never fully spoken. Conrad has always carried a quiet, protective love for Belly, the kind that hides behind guarded expressions and small gestures. Belly, on the other hand, has always seen Conrad as the boy who held her heart long before she even knew what love was. But things aren't simple. When Susanna, Conrad, and Jeremiah's mother get sick, the foundation of their world begins to shake. Conrad, who already struggles to express emotions, becomes even more distant. Belly tries to reach him, tries to be his light, but Conrad's grief builds walls between them. This is important, because by the time we reach the heartless moment, Conrad isn't just reacting to Belly's choices, he's carrying the weight of his mother's illness. His fear of losing her, and his fear of losing Belly too. At the same time, Belly's heart is torn in two directions. Jeremiah, Conrad's brother, has been open, honest, and steady in his love for her. Conrad, by contrast, has been unpredictable, hot and cold, warm one moment, distant the next. Is young, confused, and overwhelmed by the love triangle that seems to pull her in too. She doesn't want to hurt either brother, but in trying to figure out her own heart, she ends up hurting them both. The stage is set. Conrad feels betrayed, Jeremiah feels overlooked, and Belly feels trapped between them. Every small argument, every broken promise, every unspoken word adds up until emotions boil over. That's why, when Conrad finally lashes out, it's not just about the present moment. It's about everything that came before. His heartbreak, his fear, his jealousy, and his loss all come pouring out in one word: heartless. This moment is powerful because it shows us how love can twist into pain. Conrad doesn't really mean that Belly has no heart. What he means is that her choice feels like a rejection of everything they've shared. To him, it feels like she's walking away from the bond they built, the bond he thought was unbreakable. And in that flash of anger, instead of telling her he's scared of losing her, he calls her heartless. For the audience, this scene is heartbreaking because we know the truth. We've seen Belly's side of the story. We know she loves deeply, but she's overwhelmed. We know Conrad's anger comes from pain, not hatred. That's what makes the word heartless sting so much. It's not just an insult, it's a confession of how lost and broken Conrad feels. This is why fans can't stop talking about this scene. It's not just drama for the sake of drama. It's a raw emotional explosion that shows the cost of love, grief, and growing up. Conrad and Belly's story isn't just about romance. It's about the messy, complicated, beautiful, and painful journey of figuring out what love really means. To truly feel the weight of Conrad's words, I need to step back and look at the bigger picture of the summer I turned pretty. This story isn't just about one moment of anger, it's about years of history between Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah. At the very beginning, Belly has always been drawn to Conrad. For her, every summer at Cousin's Beach meant waiting for the day Conrad would finally see her, not just as the little girl who tagged along, but as someone he could truly love. And when that finally seemed to happen, when Conrad began to open his heart to her, it felt like a dream come true. Are never as simple as they seem. The love triangle between Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah is one of the most central and emotional conflicts of the series. Jeremiah is easy to love. He's open, funny, and wears his heart on his sleeve. Conrad is the opposite, quiet, serious, and often hiding what he truly feels. Belly, caught between them, represents the confusion that so many of us feel. When we're young, the struggle to understand not only what we want, but also who we are when love gets complicated. Now, let's focus on where this scene takes place in the story. By this point, Conrad and Belly's relationship is already fragile. Their romance has been marked by stolen moments, misunderstandings, and unspoken pain. When Susanna's illness takes center stage, Conrad pulls away, unable to show his emotions. In a healthy way, Belly, on the other hand, wants closeness, honesty, and comfort. The more Conrad retreats, the more Belly feels pushed aside. And while Jeremiah steps forward to support her, Conrad seems to vanish into himself, creating a rift that only grows deeper with time. This is the exact storm that sets the stage for Conrad's outburst. His world is falling apart, his mother is sick, his brother is in love with the same girl, and the one person he thought might understand him. Belly seems to be slipping through his fingers. It's a recipe for heartbreak. By the time Conrad calls Belly heartless, he isn't just speaking about a single decision she made. He's speaking from the weight of years of feelings he never properly expressed. His words are the explosion of everything he has bottled up inside. For Belly, this moment is equally devastating. From her perspective, she has tried to love Conrad in the only way she knows how. She has tried to be patient, to wait for him to let her in. She has tried to carry the weight of his silence. And yet, when she finally reaches her breaking point and makes a choice that hurts him, Conrad doesn't see the love behind her struggle. Instead, he throws a word at her that feels like a knife to the chest. The beauty of this scene is that it isn't black and white. It isn't simply Conrad being cruel or Belly being careless. It's a collision of grief, love, and misunderstanding. Conrad's heartbreak and Belly's guilt meet in a single painful moment. That's what makes the scene unforgettable. It's not just a fight between two characters. It's the crumbling of years of love and hope. For viewers, this context is what makes the word heartless echo long after the scene ends. We understand where Conrad is coming from, even if we don't agree with his words. We understand Belly's pain, even if her choices are messy. And we see, maybe more clearly than the characters themselves, how much love still exists beneath all the anger. That's what makes the scene feel so real, because in real life, love doesn't always look perfect. Sometimes it looks like this: raw, painful, and impossible to forget. The moment Conrad calls Belly heartless doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not a word said casually, and it's not a word spoken without reason. To truly understand his pain, we need to break apart the layers that build up to that exact moment. Conrad has always been a character defined by restraint. He's the one who carries the weight of the world quietly, without asking for help. On the surface, he seems calm and collected. But beneath that calm exterior lives a storm of emotions he never lets anyone see. When he finally lashes out at Belly, it's as if that storm finally breaks free. Conrad has always loved Belly. That much has been clear to fans since the very beginning. But his way of showing love has never been easy or simple. Unlike Jeremiah, who wears his heart proudly, Conrad hides his feelings, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of a desire to protect himself from rejection. His silence, his distance, and his coldness aren't signs of a lack of love. They're proof of how deeply he feels. He's terrified of what it means to let Belly in completely. That fear only grows when his mother's illness becomes the shadow hanging over his life. He's losing the most important woman in his world. He can't bear the thought of losing Belly too. So, when Belly's choices seem to drift her closer to Jeremiah, Conrad doesn't just see a girl making a decision about love. He sees betrayal. He sees abandonment. He sees his worst fear becoming reality. That the one person he thought would always choose him doesn't. In that moment, Conrad's pain transforms into anger, and anger always searches for the sharpest words to throw. For Conrad, that word is heartless. The way he says it matters too. It's not just a casual insult. It's heavy, it's raw, and it carries years of unspoken feelings. His voice is filled with both anger and sadness, because underneath it all, what Conrad really wants to say is, "You're breaking my heart. You're leaving me behind. You don't see how much this hurts." But instead of admitting his vulnerability, he lashes out. That's Conrad's tragedy. Can't say the words that might save him, so he says the one word that only causes more damage. From Belly's perspective, hearing that word is shattering. She has never been heartless. If anything, her heart is too full, too conflicted, too overwhelmed. But for Conrad, her actions look different. When she turns toward Jeremiah, when she fails to choose him, Conrad doesn't see the confusion she feels inside. All he sees is rejection. All he feels is pain. And in that narrow moment, he believes she doesn't care. To him, that looks like being heartless. This is what makes the scene so powerful. It isn't just about anger, it's about grief. It's about a boy who has lost his mother, who feels like he's losing his brother, and who is terrified of losing the girl he loves most. That grief has nowhere to go, so it explodes in the cruelest way possible. The audience doesn't excuse Conrad for saying it, but we understand him. We see the hurt behind the word, see? The boy behind the anger. That's what makes us ache for him, even as we ache for Belly too. This is why Conrad's pain resonates so deeply with fans. It's because almost everyone knows what it feels like to say something you don't truly mean. In a moment of weakness, almost everyone knows what it feels like to push someone away, even when all you want is to hold them close. Conrad's words are harsh, but they come from a place we all recognize: fear of being unloved. That's what makes the scene unforgettable. It's not just dialogue, it's a window into Conrad's soul. To understand why Conrad's words cut so deeply, we have to step into Belly's world. From the outside, it's easy to see her choices as confusing, even unfair. When you look closer, Belly's heart is a battlefield of emotions she doesn't fully know how to handle. She's in Heartless, if anything, her struggle comes from the fact that she feels too much. Belly has spent her whole life in love with Conrad. For her, summers at Cousins Beach were always about him. Every glance, every small smile, every moment of attention meant the world to her. Conrad was the dream, the boy she thought she'd never truly have, but always hoped for. So when their relationship finally begins to blossom, it feels like everything she's ever wanted is finally within reach. But dreams rarely stay perfect. Conrad's distance, his silence, and his inability to fully let her in create cracks in what she thought would be unbreakable. And then there's Jeremiah. Unlike Conrad, Jeremiah is steady. He's open. He's always there when she needs him, always ready to say the words Conrad can't. Jeremiah represents safety, joy, and a kind of love that feels warm and reliable. But choosing Jeremiah means hurting Conrad, and choosing Conrad means risking her own heart. No matter what she does, Belly feels like she's breaking something. Breaking Conrad, breaking Jeremiah, breaking herself. This is where her struggle becomes clear. Belly isn't trying to play with their hearts. She isn't careless, and she isn't cruel. She's simply a girl standing in the middle of two powerful forces of love and grief, unsure which way to turn. She wants to be loyal to her feelings, but she also wants to protect the boys she's known her whole life. And that's the impossible task. Love doesn't come without pain, no matter what she chooses. Someone she cares about will be hurt. When Conrad calls her heartless, it's the exact opposite of what Belly feels inside. Her heart is heavy, her emotions are raw, and she's overwhelmed by the weight of it all. What Conrad sees as coldness is really confusion. What Conrad sees as betrayal is really her attempt to figure out where she belongs. Belly's silence, her hesitation. And her choices aren't born from a lack of love. They're born from too much of it. And let's not forget the timing. Belly isn't just navigating her feelings for Conrad and Jeremiah. She's also grieving Susanna. Susanna was like a second mother to her, a source of love and comfort that shaped every summer memory. Losing her changes everything. Belly is trying to hold on to her childhood while being pushed into adulthood far too quickly. Her heart is fragile, her mind is clouded, and her choices are shaped by the fear of losing more than she can handle. This is what makes Belly such a relatable character. She's not perfect, and that's the point. She represents the confusion, the guilt, and the longing that so many people experience when they're young and in love. Sometimes she chooses wrong, sometimes she hesitates too long, and sometimes she breaks the very people she wants to protect. But through it all, she's not heartless, she's human. So, when Conrad looks at her and says that word, it doesn't just hurt because it's cruel. It hurts because it's not true. Hurts. Because Belly knows her heart is overflowing, but no one seems to see it. And that's the tragedy of her story. Her love is real, her struggle is real, but in Conrad's eyes, all he can see is the pain she leaves behind. Every love story has a breaking point. For Conrad and Belly, it comes in one devastating moment, the fight where Conrad finally lets his pain spill out. Up until now, their relationship has been built on a fragile balance of unspoken words, half-kept promises, and quiet longing. But in this scene, there is no silence left. Instead, there is only raw anger, heartbreak, and the kind of honesty that feels more like a wound than a confession. The fight begins the way so many real arguments do. Small words, small misunderstandings, the kind of back and forth that could have ended if either of them had taken a step back. But Conrad has been carrying too much for too long. He's grieving his mother, watching his brother fall in love with the same girl, and terrified that he's losing Belly for good. And Belly, who is equally torn apart inside, doesn't know how to explain her confusion without hurting him more. Their emotions are like gasoline waiting for a spark, and when that spark finally comes, everything ignites. The tone shifts in an instant. Conrad's voice, usually calm and controlled, rises with frustration. His words are sharp, not because he wants to hurt Belly, but because he doesn't know how else to make her see his pain. Belly, on the other hand, fights back with her own desperation. She wants him to understand that she cares, that she's not choosing to hurt him. But her words don't land the way she hopes. Instead, they push him further away. And then, in the middle of it all, the word comes out, "You're heartless." It's not shouted, it's spoken like a blade, quick and cutting. The weight of it hangs in the air, silencing everything else. In that single moment, the fight stops being about small misunderstandings. It becomes about everything they've been holding back for years. For Conrad, it feels like the truth of how deeply she's wounded him. For Belly, it feels like a betrayal, because if there's one thing she knows about herself, it's that her heart has always been full, especially for Conrad. Power of this moment lies not just in the word itself, but in what it represents. This isn't just Conrad insulting Belly, it's Conrad exposing how broken he feels inside. Heartless isn't really about her, it's about him. It's about the emptiness he feels, the love he's afraid of losing, and the pain he doesn't know how to carry. By throwing the word at her, he's trying to make sense of his suffering, even if it means pushing her away. For Belly, the word hits like a punch. She doesn't respond with anger. She responds with shock. Because she knows Conrad doesn't see her clearly in that moment. He's blinded by his grief and fear. But even knowing that doesn't soften the blow. To be called heartless by the boy she has loved for so long feels like the worst kind of rejection. It's not just him saying she's wrong, it's him saying she's empty. Everything she has felt for him doesn't matter. This is the emotional explosion at the core of the summer I Turned Pretty. It's messy, it's painful, and it's real. It shows us that love isn't just about soft words and happy endings. Sometimes love is about breaking each other in ways you never expected. Sometimes love means saying things you can never take back. And that's why this moment is unforgettable. Because in those few seconds, we see Conrad and Belly at their most vulnerable, their most human, and their most heartbroken. When Conrad calls Belly heartless, it may sound like a cruel insult on the surface, but beneath it lies a storm of meaning. This single word becomes a symbol not just for their fight, but for everything Conrad and Belly represent in the summer I Turned Pretty. To truly understand why fans can't stop talking about this moment, we need to look beyond the dialogue and into the emotional and symbolic weight behind it. First, Heartless doesn't really describe Belly. If anything, Belly's biggest flaw is that she feels too much. She loves Conrad, she cares about Jeremiah, and she still carries the grief of losing Susanna. Her heart is overflowing, and it's pulling her in every direction at once. But in Conrad's eyes, love is measured by choice. If Belly doesn't choose him, if she can walk away from him at a moment when he needs her the most, then too. Him that looks like being heartless. It's not the truth of who she is, but it's the truth of how he feels in that painful moment. Second, the word symbolizes the distance between them. For years, Belly dreamed of Conrad being the boy who could see her clearly, who could love her fully. But here, when he looks at her, he doesn't see her heart, he only sees her rejection. And in that misinterpretation lies the tragedy of their relationship. Heartless becomes a symbol of everything they fail to communicate. Everything they leave unsaid, and everything that gets lost in the mésanges of young love. Third, Heartless is about Conrad himself. When he says it, he's not only talking about Belly, he's projecting his own feelings of emptiness. He's heartbroken, terrified of losing the girl he loves, and overwhelmed by the grief of losing his mother. In truth, he's the one who feels heartless because his pain has drained him of the ability to love without fear. By calling Belly heartless, he's really admitting how lost and hollow he feels inside. There's also a larger symbolism at play in the story. This word becomes a turning point, a marker of how innocence slips away as the characters grow up. Belly and Conrad's relationship has always been painted with the glow of summers, childhood memories, and first love. But Heartless strips away the innocence. It shows that love isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's sharp, messy, and destructive. It's the moment where their perfect summer dream collides with the reality of adulthood, where choices carry real consequences, and perhaps the most heartbreaking part of all is this: Heartless is a word Conrad will regret. It's a word that will echo between them even after the fight is over. Words like that don't just vanish. They linger in memories, shaping how two people see each other. For Belly, it's a scar, a reminder of the moment when the boy she loved couldn't see her love for what it truly was. For Conrad, it's a wound, a reminder of the time he let anger speak louder than his heart. That's why this scene resonates so strongly with fans. Because we've all had moments when we've said things we didn't mean, words that carried more weight than we realized. We've all felt misunderstood, unseen, or accused of something that doesn't reflect who we are. The word heartless may belong to Conrad and Belly, but its meaning stretches beyond the show. It's a reminder of how fragile love can be, and how one word can change everything. When Conrad called Belly heartless, the fandom didn't just watch the moment, they felt it. The internet lit up with discussions, debates, and emotional reactions. For some fans, this was the moment that broke their hearts the most in the entire series. For others, it was the moment that finally revealed the truth about Conrad's character. Either way, it became impossible to ignore. On social media, fans immediately began dissecting every detail of the scene. Some sided with Conrad, arguing that his words came from a place of deep pain and grief. They saw his outburst not as cruelty, but as vulnerability, the breaking point of a boy who had carried too much for too long. For these fans, Heartless wasn't an insult. It was a confession of how abandoned Conrad felt, both by his family's circumstances and by Belly's choices. Other fans, however, rushed to defend Belly. They pointed out that she was never heartless at all. They reminded everyone that Belly had spent years loving Conrad, waiting for him, and trying to understand his silence. To them, Conrad's accusation was unfair, a product of his inability to express himself and his tendency to push her away. These fans saw Belly as misunderstood, caught in a storm she didn't create, and wounded by the very person she had always loved. And then, of course, there were the fans who saw the bigger picture. They recognized that the power of the scene lay not in who was right or wrong, but in the raw honesty of the emotions on display. These viewers celebrated the scene for its realism, noting that this is exactly what makes The Summer I Turned Pretty stand out. It's not just a sweet love story, it's a portrayal of how messy, painful, and complicated love can be. The scene sparked endless conversations in fan forums and TikTok edits, with viewers replaying the moment again and again, analyzing Conrad's tone, Belly's expression, and the silence that followed the word. Some edits painted Conrad as the tragic hero, while others showed Belly as the girl unfairly accused. In both cases, the scene became iconic, a centerpiece of the season's emotional arc. But perhaps the biggest impact of this moment was what it revealed about the fandom itself. The division between Team Conrad and Team Jeremiah only grew stronger after this fight. Some fans believe Belly should never forgive Conrad for calling her heartless, while others argued that his pain made him more human, more flawed, and more real than ever before. The debate reignited the core question of the series: who truly deserves Belly's heart? Beyond the shipping wars, though, there was a shared understanding among fans. No matter who they supported, everyone agreed that this moment was unforgettable. It was the kind of scene that sticks with you long after the episode ends. It left fans replaying it in their minds, imagining how they would have reacted, wondering what they would have said if they were in Belly's place, or how they would have stopped Conrad from breaking under the weight of his emotions. In the end, the impact of Conrad calling Belly heartless was more than just about two characters. It reminded viewers of their own experiences, the fights they've had, the words they regret, the misunderstandings that left scars. That's why fans couldn't stop talking about it, because in that one painful word, they didn't just see Conrad and Belly, they saw themselves. And so we're left with a question that doesn't have a simple answer. Was Conrad right, or was he wrong? When he looked at Belly and called her heartless, was he speaking a truth she needed to hear, or was it the cry of someone so broken that he could no longer see her clearly? The beauty of this scene is that it refuses to give us certainty. Instead, it leaves us with the raw complexity of love. Love that hurts, love that heals, and love that sometimes gets lost in the storm. This is why The Summer I Turned Pretty continues to capture our hearts. It doesn't sugarcoat relationships. It doesn't give us perfect love stories with neat endings. Instead, it gives us characters who stumble, who make mistakes, and who say things they wish they could take back. It gives us moments like this, where one word can feel heavier than the world, and where forgiveness feels impossible but necessary. So now the question is yours. What do you think? Was Conrad cruel for calling Belly heartless, or was it simply the voice of grief speaking through him? Should Belly have been more patient with Conrad, or was she right to search for love that felt steady and certain? These are the questions. Fans are still debating, and your voice is part of that conversation. If this moment struck you as deeply as it did so many others, let us know in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your team, your heartbreak. Because The Summer I Turned Pretty isn't just a show we watch. It's a story we live through together. And if you want more breakdowns of scenes like this, more deep dives into the moments that make us cry, scream, and fall in love with these characters, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss any of the drama, the theories, or the emotional twists that keep us hooked. In the end, maybe that's the point of this story. Love isn't heartless. Love is complicated, messy, and sometimes painful. But it's always real. And that's why we can't stop watching. Beneath Conrad's harsh words lies something we can't ignore: vulnerability. On the surface, he appears cold, sharp, and even unfair. But when you peel back that layer, you see a young man who is completely lost in his grief. His mother's death wasn't just a wound. It was an earthquake that shook his entire foundation. Everything he thought was safe and permanent, his family, his summer home, his place in the world, shattered in front of him. And when life breaks that deeply, it changes the way you see love. That's why Conrad pushes Belly away. It's not that he doesn't love her, it's that he loves her too much and doesn't know how to let her in without risking more pain. In his mind, every bond is temporary, every joy is fragile, and every promise will eventually break. So when Belly moves on or shows signs of choosing Jeremiah, it doesn't just hurt Conrad, it confirms his deepest fear, that love isn't safe, that nothing lasts. Calling Belly heartless was his shield. It was easier to label her as cold than to admit that he was the one bleeding inside. Easier to throw the first stone than to confess he was terrified of being abandoned again. Vulnerability has always been Conrad's greatest battle. Where Jeremiah wears his heart on his sleeve, Conrad hides his behind walls, silence, and sharp words. And that's what makes this scene so painful. Because for once, we catch a glimpse of that hidden boy inside Conrad, the one who still longs for comfort, for love, for something that feels unshakable. Instead of saying, "I'm broken," or "I need you," he lashes out. Instead of asking for help, he creates distance. But here's the thing. Fans recognize that hidden softness. They see the boy who stays awake at night, the one who carries the weight of everyone's expectations, the one who would rather break his own heart than risk breaking someone else's, and maybe that's why. Despite his mistakes, so many viewers continue to root for him. Because they know the anger is just a mask, and underneath, Conrad is as fragile as anyone. This is the genius of Jenny Han's writing. She doesn't give us perfect characters, she gives us layered souls. And Conrad, with all his flaws and hidden vulnerability, is one of the most heartbreakingly real characters on the screen.